Jamaica is a country where change and contradiction seem to be written into the fabric of social life. From the 15th century, when the island was captured by colonial forces, Jamaica has been part of a production and trading network developed around principles of exploitation and inequality. Today, the economy is much more diversified, as the earlier dependence on agricultural production has expanded to include bauxite mining, manufacturing, tourism, and a range of other services. Nonetheless, there is a problem of persistent poverty, a highly unequal distribution of income, and wide social divisions. Visitors to Jamaica are struck by the natural beauty of the island, as well as its inequalities. Modern skyscrapers coexist with squalid shanty towns. Urban thoroughfares boast the newest European cars, while many struggle to find the bus fare to send children to school. An important feature of life in this Caribbean island is the steady flow of information from North America, which shapes attitudes and aspirations. This occurs through the media and the internet, and is transferred directly through the constant movement of travelers. As a result, while poverty remains a state of absolute deprivation, it is also experienced in relative terms, as the deprived are sharply conscious of their comparative disadvantages. Jamaican women are at the center of these contradictions. They are in general better educated than their male counterparts, have high rates of participation in the labor force, are known to be assertive, and occupy a pivotal role in their households. Nonetheless, the fate of many Jamaican women seems to be one of continuing dependence on males. They remain trapped in lower-paying areas of the labor market, which thwart their aspirations for economic advancement. They are still subject to cultural pressures, which define womanhood in terms of early childbearing, and which promote a competitive sexuality that leaves them unable to negotiate for their own benefit. Nowhere is this dilemma more evident than in rural Jamaica and in those communities which are still dominated by sugarcane production. A visit to Clarkstown in the western parish of Trelawny provides some insight into the situation of young Jamaican women. Life in Clarkstown today seems very similar to that described by Edith Clark some 50 years ago in her famous study, My Mother Who Fathered Me. However, whereas in the 1950s, the situation of young women came mainly to the attention of social workers and church workers, today there is more formal recognition of the pressures that young Jamaican women face. Projects to improve reproductive health now target youth, using innovative approaches to educate young men and women to the alternatives and the consequences of early childbearing. This is a story of Clarkstown today and the Reproductive Health Project, which mobilized the entire community to work together. Clarkstown has been heavily dependent on the sugarcane industry for decades. A large number of its residents are employed to the Long Pond Sugar Estate, but for the most part these jobs are seasonal. The lack of economic diversification of Clarkstown has meant that residents can access few alternate sources of employment when the cane season, or crop as it is commonly called, is over. Like many other rural areas in Jamaica, Clarkstown is faced with high levels of unemployment for young women. Although education levels have increased, once girls complete their secondary schooling, there is little chance of finding employment within the area.
Their income is very, very low. Most of them not working. Some of them depend on men, and their parents, most of them parents doesn't have it to give them. So probably that is one of the reasons why they are out there searching, you know.
Some of the young women from Clarkstown will try to find jobs in the hotel industry. Others may go as far afield as Kingston in search of jobs. However, most of the young women in the area report great difficulty in finding a stable job which can meet their basic needs.
Because sometimes you're working, and when you're working, when weekend comes, you don't even see what you're working for. Even though like right now, like how I have my child, I have to leave him at daycare. And I used to work down by a windmill. And when I work sometime weekend, it's only $1,300 alone, and that don't fear. Because we have to work so hard. And when weekend come, $1,300 that can carry out.
As a result, the young women in Clarkstown tend to find themselves being heavily dependent on males for their basic needs. This situation is quite dangerous, since many of the men in Clarkstown are itinerant cane cutters with a very weak attachment to the area.
Clarkstown has a very big cane factory, and we have persons coming from out of the parish coming in to cut canes. And of course, the young people gravitate towards these men, and in the end they get pregnant, and when the crop is finished they leave them and they are gone home. And most of these they are young people still in school, so they drop out of school, don't have any means of good maintenance.
Despite the fact that the cane cutters usually leave the town after the crop has ended, there still exists a strong bias in favor of these outside men, both by the parents and the girls in the area. This is because during crop time, the young girls, and by extension their families, can be assured of a steady source of financial support.
And most of the parents, they don't want the child to talk to no man in the area, which it's mostly outsiders, but they don't know anything about. So like a new man come in the area, is glad to make them talk. True, they are the bend down market here. They want to go and buy hot jeans for any dance that keep in any hot clothes they want to be in it. So every Friday now when the man them get the pay, the cane cutters they come and collect. Friday, Thursday, whatever, whenever they get the pay, they just come and collect, go and shop at Benj.
While some of these relationships appear to be satisfying purely material desires to be wearing the latest fashions, some of the less fortunate young girls in Clarkstown appear to have no other way of meeting their basic needs.
Some of the parents force their child to go out there and get stuff too, because they are telling them that like they have to provide food too or whatever, so they have to, some of them just go out by force or whatever to get something to eat or clothes to wear or whatever.
Many of these young women, however, end up having more than one unplanned pregnancy, which perpetuates the cycle of poverty and dependence within Clarkstown. The Adolescent Youth Sexual and Reproductive Health Project was implemented by the Government of Jamaica with support from the United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA, between 1999 and 2001. The goal of this project was to improve the quality of life, well-being, and the sexual and reproductive health of adolescents and youth through an integrated gender-sensitive pilot project in 3 pilot communities in Jamaica. The 3 pilot communities selected for the ARH project were Montego Bay St. James, Maxfield Park Kingston, and Clarkstown Trelawny. The Adolescent Youth Sexual and Reproductive Health, or ARH project, adopted a unique 3-pronged approach to address the common problems of unsafe sexual behavior and teenage pregnancy. This project sought to empower youth between the ages 10 to 24 by bringing about changes in their knowledge, attitudes, and behavior towards sex, fertility, and reproductive health. The project was implemented by the Ministry of Health, and the National Family Planning Board was the agency responsible for coordinating all aspects of the project. The project design was informed by a baseline study conducted in the 3 pilot communities in 1999. Clarkstown was chosen because of its high level of reported sexually transmitted diseases, STDs, teenage pregnancies, and malnutrition among babies at the government health clinics. The ARH project sought to address these problems and comprise 5 components, namely service delivery, information, education and communication, advocacy, training, monitoring and evaluation. One of the more progressive aspects of service delivery was the introduction of special reproductive and sexual health clinics to meet the needs of young people. The baseline study revealed that many youth were not attending the local health centers to obtain contraceptives or do HIV tests because of the taboo surrounding sex and the fear of being judged by their elders. As a result, these special youth-only clinics were held twice a month in the afternoons after school had ended. These clinics provided the youth with a space of their own, where they could discuss their sexual concerns and raise their queries in a private, friendly, value-free atmosphere. These clinics also provided young people with an opportunity to receive counseling, referrals, sexual health information and free contraceptives. Other services offered included tests for STDs and other reproductive health tests. A central component of the ARH program was the establishment of a vibrant team of trained peer educators who were recognized as the VIP youth. This component was informed by research findings, which indicated that the youngsters in Clarkstown, especially the girls, had very low self-esteem and often responded to pressure from their peers to engage in high-risk sexual behavior. The role of the VIP youth was to inform and educate young people about sexual and reproductive health issues in a friendly peer setting.
We have been in situations where youths will say that, they know how to use a condom, and to put it on, then that's another problem, because there's a point where they all and pull and stretch it and it will burst, and we show them that, well, this is the way how to do it, and we go through step by step in the correct procedures.
The importance of peer-to-peer counseling is emphasized by this young lady who found herself pregnant at age 15.
When I was growing up, and like for instance my mother was telling me about boyfriend and getting pregnant, I don't really listen. I just want to do my own thing. I said I want to try for myself, you understand, and I just get caught in water. So we need to go out and tell them, believe in that they can get pregnant and their future can be dropped back.
Most of the young persons selected to be VIP youth were role models in their community who commanded a high level of respect. This enabled them to mobilize the youth to attend VIP presentations and gave them the authority to guide and motivate their peers. The VIP youth received formal training in peer counseling, community mobilization, and theatre in education techniques, and frequently used the medium of the performing arts to convey their messages. They took their reproductive health messages to schools, church youth groups, youth clubs, community social gatherings, and sporting events like the popular Corner League football competition. In addition to addressing the importance of condom use and planning for safe sex, the VIP youth sought to motivate youngsters to delay sexual initiation and childbearing by focusing on school and planning a career. By instilling the importance of valuing themselves, their lives and their bodies, the VIP youth were able to help the young people to change their attitudes towards sex and pregnancy and shape a vision for their future. The ARH project sought to reach youth at an early age by establishing a strong base within the school system. The VIP youth fostered the formation of teen clubs in all the local schools, and a community teen club was set up for youth who were not in school. In addition, guidance counselors and teachers were exposed to modern, student-friendly approaches to family life and sex education.
My school, for example, we make it available anytime for meetings, for recreation, for just about the support. And we allow the
the educators, the young people, to come into my school to have sessions with the younger ones, as is.
This three-pronged approach adopted by the ARH project mirrors the three preconditions identified by Ainsley Cole in 1973 as necessary for a significant decline in fertility to occur. Individuals must accept that they have a calculated choice whether or not to have a child. They must have knowledge and mastery of effective birth control techniques. They must perceive that there are advantages to be gained from reducing their fertility and be motivated to use these techniques. While sexual and reproductive health was the primary focus of the ARH project, the need for parenting education was also identified. Many young women in Clarkstown became mothers in their teens and early 20s and were ill-equipped to take on the challenge of child rearing. These girls are often not mature enough to give their children the guidance and supervision they need. As a result, they unwittingly perpetuate the cycle of teenage pregnancy and poverty as their young daughters, left to their own devices, fall prey to the men in the area.
And some of the parents, we young parents, young people, we send them out, we do things too. Because some of them will go up like 14, young people have 14, 10. Like them say they want to go through, them want to have for them boyfriend at home and them now really want to see the children. Them see them say go on to Skateland or go on to road. Them not really care, so the children them just broke out. Well, I have some of these parents, whenever they see the child carrying anything in the house, that's why they don't ask them where they get it from. They just, if it's clothes, they wear it, if it's food, they eat it. But the child just feel like him can go out there and do, yeah, she can go out there and do anything.
While the VIP project has had many successes, there are several factors which posed barriers to the achievement of the project's objectives. One of the cultural barriers which the ARH project had to surmount was the conservatism of the churches in Clarkstown.
There are 16 churches in this small town, and some of them are very biased against teaching family life education to their youngsters. A particular pastor from a church made a comment that his members or his young people, they are all Christians, and if they are Christians, then they do not need family planning.
Well, right now in the churches, many young people had left the church because everybody have boyfriend and girlfriend, they want to have the same thing, so they left the church and don't really matter.
Maybe if the church was telling the young people about sex and don't go out and have sex or whatever, so much young people wouldn't leave the church and then go out and have baby and stuff if they were talking about it in church.
I therefore organize to have a pastors and lay preachers workshop, and this was done. We had 25 participants coming out, and the response was very, very good. And as a matter of fact, I was asked to repeat same again. So if this program continues, then I'm certain that we will have more ministers participating in this project.
The lack of alternate training opportunities for young people, especially young mothers who have dropped out of school, is another barrier to the process of changing attitudes and behavior towards fertility.
We did have a training center by Hyde. I think that program is still going on. Either to help spread bed, that they can go on the farm work or further their education by, in this space of the time, spreading the bed, help them to express themselves, help them to do, like if they go and look a job, help them to talk, tell them what to do. Like for instance, they go on an interview, help them to explain themselves, because many times we go and look at them, because the way we talk, they don't really recognize us. You understand? When we go and look the job and they call us in, maybe we're going to get the job, you know. But the way we express ourselves, we don't get the job. So we need the training center back in process, because it can help us to learn something. Sometimes we cannot afford the money to go and learn the thing. That could help us. Even if we don't even have lunch, we must can even carry $20 and say, let everybody make a cook and go on with the program.
The weak economic base of the town and the subsequent lack of employment opportunities also posed major constraints to the implementation of this attitude and behavior change project.
Well, undoubtedly, the VIP program has instituted or has built the capacity of persons within Clarkstown in some areas, particularly in building their confidence, establish a sense of well-being and community well-being. But at the end of the day, when these programs leave, the real economic issues are still there. So yes, you make me more confident, you make me more aware of the problems that are in my society, and to some extent what I can do to alleviate some of these problems. But at the end of the day, how will this help me to feed my 3 children?
The success of the ARH project was also impeded by the relatively short implementation period. The funding from UNFPA ended prematurely and therefore curtailed the amount of time the VIP youth and other project staff could spend in the field.
The VIP program hasn't reached its goal because of the span of time. It is so short, and as people is about to be more aware of it, that is the time it has ended.
My recommendation for this project is that more young persons need to be trained to be a part of this project. More time need to be put into it. It need more organization and planning so that it can run on a continuous basis, because it ought to be an ongoing project. Ongoing, so that the young people can benefit from it. Okay? Because if they get this information and if they become knowledgeable, it will benefit us as a community. Our community standing will be improving. Everything around us will change.